Hello everyone, it's TinyHawk 2 Freestyle Day. This is the original, this is the new. What's the difference? What's changed? The original had this little board camera. The 2 now has the Runcam Nano 2 in it. The original had this capacitor hanging off the side. Now the capacitor's tucked away inside. The original used tape to secure the motor wires down. Now they're using zip ties. And of course the original had black props. They've switched to red now. The original weighed about 50.5 grams. The 2 now weighs a little over 54 grams. The frame has been adjusted to allow for that Runcam camera. You can see how the nose is a bit wider, as well as the print on the carbon fiber. It still has 1103 7000 kV motors. It still has a power switchable VTX from 25 milliwatts to 200 milliwatts. It does need to be unlocked. The ESC is still a 5 amp 4-in-1. The props remain to be 2.5 inches, and it still has dual solid pin PH20 connectors. Battery lead is secured down right there. They may have switched carbon fiber. This one might be a touch stiffer. It still comes in a case with an accessory bag full of screws and a nylon standoff. You get a 6-port USB charger, an extra set of props, but I lost one. Comes with 2 450 milliamp 1S batteries. You also get a support card, but no stickers. The original is supposed to be in Italy from a giveaway, but it came back. We'll get it there one day. So we're flying it on a relatively windy day. It actually has moments where it's calm and moments where it gets a little bit more windy. And I'll actually time my punch outs over the house that I do oftentimes, just kind of show that maximum throttle boost. I try to time that to where the wind is at a low point. So not only am I flying it, but I'm trying to pay attention to my environment, as we all should. You know, we want to be aware of our surroundings and our wind, and keep our drones safe as well as ourselves. Oddly enough, I didn't find that the additional weight mattered all that much. It's probably due to the fact that it's got pretty efficient 2.5-inch props, and these motors are pretty efficient as well. Sure, the flight time, if you go back and compare my original review, you'll probably find the flight time is a touch shorter. I don't think it matters all that much. I think it's probably only 10 seconds. It might be 15 seconds. But you can equate some of that to just flight style, flight path. You know, flights vary a little bit. Oh, I clipped that tree there with a prop, didn't I? This is called a freestyle, but you can fly any quad any way you want, really. Sure, some are going to do certain things a little bit better than others, but in my experience, it doesn't make a high degree of difference unless you're at that top echelon of pilots. For most of us, whether you want a top-mounted battery or a bottom-mounted battery, you can fly the quad. You can do the tricks if you want to do tricks. You can do the racing if you want to do racing. I'm more of a racer, if it's not apparent to you already. But I work in a few aerobatics here and there as I go around the yard. And I fly in my backyard exclusively. I don't travel much. I'm a family man. I have got 3 children, and I like to spend time at home with my family. Oftentimes, in normal times, we're heavily traveling all over the city, doing all the various activities that kids do these days. We've been spending a lot of time at home. That hasn't, oddly enough, meant more fly time because I work from home. Something else that I would like to impress upon people is when you buy quads from certain companies, they come what I call professionally tuned. Some companies have team pilots. They send these products to their team pilots before they're released for retail sale, and the team pilots tune it up. And Emax does that. Some companies don't. They rely on the community to tune them, or they just allow you to tune it to your heart's desire if that's your thing. In this case, I think it's more... The Emax Micros are more friendly to beginners or people who don't like to tune or don't want to tune or don't want to learn to tune, because it already comes with at least 2 profiles. You can test them both out. You can switch them through the OSD, and they both work fine. There is one caveat for anybody who is running a brand new FR Sky radio. Please be sure that you can bind in D8 mode. D16 mode you'll probably be able to bind, but you may find that the range that you get isn't all that good. You could probably fly in a space like mine on D16 mode, but it probably won't get you a whole lot more. That's something that we hear from the community quite a bit. Also, the VTX is another point that some people have troubles with. I'm running the rapid fire module. I have updated it. I think is 1.31 or 1.3, and I am running it in rapid fire 1 mode. So that's the best possible reception that I'm able to get with my equipment, and you can judge the breakup or the video reception for yourself. I just want to point out the facts of the flight so that you have all the information to make your own diagnosis. Emax also sells their own radio. You should be able to bind up with that if you choose to use that. There are other radios on the market that are also in that entry level or budget friendly. I would suggest maybe taking a look at the Betaflight Lite 2 radio. I have one here. I haven't gotten around to reviewing it yet. I've been tinkering with it here and there. But as to this flight, you know, it's fun. Cruising around your yard, ripping around your yard, doing tricks through your yard, going to a park, going to a big open field if that's where you want to fly or what you have to fly. You can fly micros just about anywhere you want and make use of any obstacles if you choose to, or just go and have fun. And that's the reason why I stick to micros. I enjoy them, and Emax is a company, they're a big company, so you're going to be able to find parts when you do need parts, and we always need parts for our quads because we fly and we crash, but you'll be able to easily get those parts. You can even get those parts from Amazon from time to time. In this flight, we're just going to take a look at my hardest crash. And this came from a punch out. I got a little bit out of shape, but I thought I could squeeze in that little sliver before I hit the shed. And I do squeeze in, but I don't get the throttle right, and I end up slamming into the ground, and then we have the batteries eject. That happens. No damage to the quad. Flew up many, many times after this. The frame came in fine. Matter of fact, now that we're back to the desk, in the top right-hand corner, I am going to show you probably my worst flight of the last month. I was just flying really poorly. I don't know why. Maybe I was in a rush or something. Maybe it was because of the weather. Maybe it was because of work. But I was just not very good on the sticks. And at some point, I just kind of laughed it off and decided, oh, I'm just going to fly recklessly and see what happens. That's useful for the review. Give it some abuse. You will see me turtle mode in this. If you're not familiar, we commonly call turtle mode. In beta flight, it's called flip over after crash. It's where the quad ends up on its head, so to speak. And then you flip a switch to enable turtle mode or flip over after crash. You give it a little stick input, and then it flips over. And then you turn off turtle mode. Then you can rearm, and then you can fly away. Normally in micros, I don't suggest that. In this video, you're going to see me turtle mode a couple of times and fly away. I did that as a proof of concept, not because I'm recommending that. It is a possibility. When you have these little all-in-one boards and you have low overhead on your ESCs, you know, we've got a 5 amp 4-in-1 ESC, so we've got 20 total amps to work with, but on any one channel, if it goes over that 5 amps for very long and in turtle mode, it can create a big spike when you have a prop that's stuck or it can't move. But I did it a few times in this particular flight. I did it a few times in other flights on this day because I was so bad. And it survived just fine. Now, I'm not endorsing it, or I'm not saying that you won't suffer some sort of negative consequences from doing that, but I thought I should show it to you. I should show you some crashes, some bumps, some bruises, and also show you the fact that I did turtle mode this a few times. If you're familiar with the original TinyHawk FreeStyle, there's probably not much more that you'd want to know. They continue to use a connector to connect the camera, which is fine. So if you do center a pole or a tree or something and you smash the lens and you can't get a replacement lens, or you choose not to get a replacement lens, you can just buy a new camera, and that's a solderless fix. Just unscrew it, plug it in, you're good to go. You could swap it out for a different camera if you have a camera you've got your eye on. I've got a number of camera reviews on the channel. Many of you have seen those. The connectors are still there if you needed to replace a motor and you wanted to go with a solderless repair. They are soldered on from the factory. And also these wires, they're a little bit longer than I'd like. Let me get a tool out here. On one of these sections, I'm trying to look around the camera to see. I have a nick in one of the wires, I thought. I think it's right there. If that's coming through on camera, let me go with top view. It's very, very minor. Can you see it right there? But there is enough slack that after you have some bumps and bruises and crashes, that these zip ties can start to wiggle out and creating the space that you might need in order to catch those. Maybe it wasn't this side. At one of the sides, I have got a nick in one of the wire. It's very, very minor. I only noticed it after the crash. Maybe it's on this side. Well, at any rate, the wires could be in harm's way. Just keep an eye on that. Don't just shove in on the zip tie. Hold your motor wires with, say, your thumb or something like that so you don't pull them out of the motor, and then shift your zip tie back in. You may have to apply a new zip tie if you can't shift it into an appropriate area. You can also use a tool like this. Don't use a metal tool when you're powered on. This touches a couple of components and you've got to short smoke and fire and damage and sadness. You can pick up a stick off the ground or something like that and just kind of manipulate the wires back in there. As long as you're flying and not tumbling through a tree, they should stay. If you have a crash, though, I would recommend checking the wires and their position before you take back off again. Again, I don't endorse using turtle mode and flying away, but I did do it. Generally, it's safer for the quad's health and our pocketbook to just go pick it up and make sure it's okay and then set it back down and go for another fun flight. If you're into high performance and you want to make some improvements, maybe down the road, taking this and cutting this off and putting on a true XT30, you'll probably find that you get more performance. While this is the best PH2 connector you can have with the solid pins, XT30 does outperform it. You may want to also increase the gauge of wire. I'm not certain. I've never done that on one of these quads, but that's another possibility of an easy upgrade to increase its performance. Right down here, you can see the VTX is connected via these connectors, and these are soldered together. If you have the skill set, you should be able to separate those and replace the VTX if you can find the VTX on its own. I have noted that in the replacement parts, this board kind of comes as all one assembly unit. If you do happen to damage your board, hopefully you had the foresight to take a CLI dump before you went for your first flight. It's always best to save the CLI from Betaflight. That gives you all the configuration of Betaflight in its totality. You can save that to a file on your computer. That way, if you do have to get a new board, you could get a board that's meant for, because they've been reusing this board across a couple different micros, you could get a board that doesn't necessarily have this specific tune on it. And with that dump file, it puts everything back. It puts your OSD elements back. It puts your modes back and the proper switch associations. It puts your rates back. Everything that you decide to put on the quad, it will put back from that dump file. You can also do a diff. That will work as well, as long as the new board comes with the same version of Betaflight that your old board came with. I did have some crashes to where the batteries wanted to come out front. Of course, this connector is very tight. It actually holds onto the batteries really well. Even when you slide forward on this, it tugs tight on this. Good thing they've got that zip tie down there to hold that on. But there were a few flights where you could actually see my batteries as I was flying home after a crash, kind of hanging out over the camera. I don't think I showed you much of a shot of the bottom, but this is the print that they use on there. I don't know if this is a lay-on sort of laminate or if this is painted on. I suspect it's something sort of maybe vinyl that they lay on the carbon. Maybe they have sheets with this stuff all over it, and then they could just cut out the carbon. I'm not certain on that. The only weak points that I really have much of concern about, which are unfounded because, again, I don't have any damage, is the material between these screws on each side and the edge. It's not terrible, you know, the complete screw head, and then we've got maybe another millimeter and a half outside of the screw head before we get to the edge of the carbon. That's could be a weak point. You can see we also have the cutouts for the camera plates. I really don't have much of a concern there because, again, you're going to have to center something really in order to hit those camera plates. And if you've centered something, you've probably at least damaged your camera, unless it was real wide. And then maybe you get lucky and the props kind of eject you off of what it is. But if a pole or something gets in there and hits the camera plates, you probably end up with camera damage as well. Of course, as I'm recording this, there are no prices that I have available to me. I'll put links down in the video description. I suspect that most places are going to be selling this for somewhere around $115 to $125. It might be more, it might be less, but I'll have links down in the video description if you'd like to check the pricing out. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.